Have you failed at anything in your life? Great, then this podcast is for you. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Elevate from Failure podcast. I'm your host, Jan Smith. I'm Food and Glam blog on Instagram and also Brody blog on Instagram as well. I have my guest, Johanna. Thank you for joining me. We're both in the UK. Today is a much needed episode because we're going to talk about ADHD. I'm an ADHDer and so is Johanna. I'm introducing more of my kind of food blog, lifestyle blog content integrating with ADHD, kind of giving a little bit of an explanation as to why I'm interested in so many things, but also kind of the why behind a lot of the things that I do professionally. So with that, this show covers neurodivergence, mental health, and small business tips. But today we're going to talk a lot about long COVID and POTS as well. Is that correct, Joanna?
Yeah.
So this can be definitely a touchy subject, but that's what podcasts are for, to kind of push the buttons a little bit. But I have a work colleague who has unfortunately long COVID. She from her Instagram, it looks like she's kind of immobile for months, and it's really tough because this is one of the, like, she is somebody that I kind of look up to for inspiration. Like, she's helped motivate me in my career as an artist. So it's really tough when a disease like this affects us even to this day after 6 years after COVID. So, Joanna, if you want to briefly tell the listeners about yourself, and we can kind of dive into the symptoms of long COVID that led you to get some help.
Yeah, of course. So I mean, very quickly about myself, as you said, like I'm an ADHD, so I'm also interested in a lot of different things. And one of the main things I do right now is kind of health and ADHD coaching. But in terms of the long COVID, so for me, for example, it kind of hit me in the summer of like 2024. And for me, most of the debilitating symptoms was fatigue. And I'd kind of explain it to people who kind of haven't experienced that fatigue is like if you had jet lag, hangover, and like flu all at the same time, like you feel absolutely awful. And
And
and you
no,
kind
you
of
don't
wake
just need more sleep.
exactly. And then it's like you wake up every day and you feel like that, and you kind of hope that maybe one day I feel a tiny bit better, and of course like that day can come, but usually it's like a very 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 slow progress in it, and it can be such a debilitating kind of illness. And I mean, there's like, I think more than 200 different symptoms that you can have. So everyone's journey is very different. Like my journey is just mine. But it was very, very awful and very, very scary experience.
Oh my gosh. So if you can, for those of us who just need like examples. So was it fatigue, but also did you have like shortness of breath, or did you have typical flu symptoms? So was it coupled with that? And what, because unfortunately with ADHDers, we have fatigue often.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're used to it. Like, I mean, we're not, but we learn to get through life. So what made this different?
Yeah, I think that's a really good
Sadly.
point. Like, yeah, and I think for me personally, like I hadn't really like when I look back, it wasn't really fatigue that I'd ever experienced. Like I think it's compared to what that was, but so yeah, I think the fatigue is just like it kind of is like over everything like you do in
Yeah.
life. Like it's not just kind of one area where it's like, oh, it's just like a physical
Yeah.
fatigue. Like for me, it came with like brain fog as well. Like I think it kind of felt, I remember saying it, and felt almost that I aged for like 80 years or something in
Wow,
like
that's
few
insane.
days.
Yeah, sorry, don't mind.
So, so that's what it kind of felt like. It's like for me, it was like my memory was like I really struggled with it. Like kind of thinking, I really struggled with. Like I've always been a very kind of fast thinker, and my brain was just like just nothing was
Oh,
in there.
so
And
were you bedridden for a bit?
so I was never really fully bed bound. I wouldn't say so. Like of course, like with maybe with the COVID part of it, like the acute illness maybe, but not really like fully kind of bed bound. Like I was always able to like, go toilet and usually like go to the sofa and things like that. Like there's people who, who can't really even leave a dark room. Like it's like that bad.
Oh, wow.
But so I was more like kind of housebound for like I'd say like 6 months or so where I wouldn't really be able to like go for walks or anything, like maybe like medical appointments or something like that, but they would kind of take the energy out of me for a very long time.
That is insane. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Just to give a background, Joanna is a health and ADHD coach with a background in neuroscience and health and behavioral change behavioral change research. I'll edit that out. Uh, um, so um, so I wanted to kind of this during this show have her talk about the neuroscience part of ADHD. And from this, so is it from this long COVID diagnosis? Did you get a diagnosis for ADHD?
Yes, it was about kind of a year later when I was like slowly making progress and slowly kind of bringing normal things into life, like going for like like small walks and trying to start like read and things like that. And that's when I like really kind of struggled with like, I mean, I've always kind of known I have ADHD, but I think I fully didn't really know what it was other than kind of hyperactivity and inattention. But
Mhm.
I think in those moments, because a lot of the coping mechanisms were taken away because of the long COVID and
Oh
when you
yeah.
when you don't use your brain, when you don't use your body, there is also like you're not using it. It is like in a way like they are muscles, right? So it's like it in part of like that kind of I had lost that, but also like with the whole illness and all the challenges of that, like it's just like a big struggle. And that's when I felt kind of, and through this journey I had learned to kind of trust my gut a bit more. And basically my gut was telling me like, oh, is there something else? Like, is there kind of
Ooh.
ADHD there? And because of a big like a link of kind of all this like long COVID and POTS and hypermobility and neurodivergence, like that's where I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense. And then I kind of started to read more and kind of read people's stories and that's when I was like, oh, maybe like going down a diagnosis route is the way to figure it out more and understand myself better.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I think that that's great. A lot of people, especially women, are diagnosed later in life, often as adults, which is it's really concerning because I've heard that it hasn't gotten much better from
Hmm.
current teachers, even here in the UK. You mentioned hyperactivity. So what does that look like to you? Because unfortunately, when with the programming, when we think about it, it's little boys bouncing off the walls. So what is hyperactivity to you? What does that look like to you?
Yeah, so for me, actually, personally, it is very much hyperactivity. Like I learned to walk before I learned to crawl. Like that's, I think
Oh,
that explains me very well. So I
you
was
just
like
walked as a
everywhere.
baby?
Yeah, as a baby, yeah, exactly. So my
Oh,
my parents had their hands
I
full.
bet they were
Like
like, she's gonna be like an Olympian or something.
yeah, exactly. So
My
I was
parents
like
would
doing
think.
everything, like climbing everywhere, doing everything.
That's
But
cool.
so yeah, like it was very much hyperactivity. And I always felt like I had more energy than other people.
Dog.
So I think for me it was actually, having lots of energy. But
Mhm.
at the same time, like I think especially for women, the hyperactivity a lot of time is in our heads as well. And I think especially like, you know, in school and in places where you have to kind of sit still and you can't move. So I think that a lot of the hyperactivity does kind of transform into your head as well. So I definitely have that as well, that I have like, you know, everything goes like million miles an hour all the time in my head, and then you have like 100 different thoughts at the same time, and everything is a bit of a mess in our heads. But that's kind of, I think, where the hyperactivity shows up. So for me, at least it used to be before long COVID, it was definitely physical, and I
Mm.
can slowly start like it kind of coming back, the physical hyperactivity. But there's definitely like that mental side to it as well, which a lot of women do have.
Yeah. So are you healed from the long COVID, or are there still remnants of that?
I'd say there's still kind of stuff there. So like for me, like I think like the fatigue is definitely much better, and I'm not kind of scared of it anymore. So I can kind of, you know, even if it comes, I have skills, I have tools, I have everything to kind of deal with it.
Mm.
And like as you kind of mentioned, I think with ADHD, like our brains are kind of, you know, we run really fast sometimes, and then it is a little bit like cyclical.
It
So
is,
I think
yeah.
like part of it is probably a little bit of that as well. And I'm like almost having to teach my body that it's normal to be tired. You know, not everything has to be like this really deep fatigue, but sometimes, you know, when you have a hard day, it's actually all right to be tired as well. So it's like relearning, like, oh, it's okay to be tired, but of course, like reducing the fatigue as much as I can. But at the same time, like the kind of POTS part of it, which is like, I mean, for anyone who doesn't know, it's like kind of postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which is such a hard name to pronounce. But basically, what it means is like when you're upright, your pulse can go like quite high, and it kind of stays there, and it can be really uncomfortable. And for some people, they can even like faint from it, and but then for other people, it kind of really shows up as fatigue and brain fog and more of those symptoms. And I feel like that kind of definitely still there. And I am like supporting myself with like drugs and things like that for that. And I don't know, like, is there a way to heal from it, or does it go away,
Yeah,
or
we
does
don't
it not
know.
go away? And that's still
Yeah.
like a thing to kind of explore. But I definitely know that, you know, I was able to do things before I got sick with long COVID, so I'm hoping that it will all kind of go back to that. And you know, as someone with ADHD, you do need to learn to manage, you know, not kind of run 100,000 miles all the time. So it is like it's managing that as well, right? So it's all kind of interlinked. It's
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I'm a little bit jealous because I wish I had the like tree climbing, I call it ADHD.
Mm,
I think I have it when I play sports, like when it's in a controlled environment, then I can go buck wild with with it.
yeah.
But I really wish I was more of an explorer ADHD. I'm definitely with that with my mind. I can go, like you said, a
Mm,
million different directions
yes,
just sitting
yeah.
on the couch. But yeah, that I think that that's cool. Yeah, I have a friend who also has ADHD, and she's currently in South America in Peru hiking
Mm,
and things, and like of course she is, you know, like I
yeah.
would not expect anything different. So that's great. So I do want to talk a little bit about your neuroscience background. I think that that's awesome. So if you want to talk a little bit about that, what made you go into that field, and do you think that people who have some kind of condition that makes them different, even if they don't know it, do you think that they go into that field often than not?
That's an interesting question, and I think a lot of the time it could be, right? Like you almost like you're unconsciously like interested in these topics and figuring it out. And I mean, it's not the case for everyone, but I think for a lot of people it can be, and it's always easier to look at others than yourself. So it's almost easier, you know, to see
Oh
things
yeah.
in others. So when you learn it, you're like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But it's not like you look at it, it's like, oh, that makes sense for me.
Yeah,
So
that's so
it's
true.
yeah, that's quite interesting. And but I don't know, like how I got into it was I kind of liked science in school, and then I actually kind of studied natural sciences because you can pick few sciences at the same time. So it's like, yes, that sounds good. I don't have to make a decision. And then it kind of got from that. It was I was doing like chemistry and kind of like more like biology or like kind of biosciences. And then from there I kind of was like, oh, I really kind of the neuroscience was just really interesting because I think it like I think now it is more of a field, but when I kind of was in uni, it was just like this like oh fancy thing, this brain science, all of that. Um, so yeah, I think I was like, oh, that sounds fascinating. So I'm
It
gonna do
does.
that.
It sounds really, really cool.
If you're an entrepreneur, you can do a lot on your own. But with a reliable team on your side, you can go even farther. I'm the owner of Brody Blog, and we are a full-service marketing team. Whether it's increasing sales for your business or making sense of the analytics from Instagram, Facebook, and so on, we can help grow your business, therapy practice, or charity by developing a strategy with the media channels that align with your highest goals. Whether you want to take your business to new heights or have a passion project that you want to transition into a business, having the right team will help you to reach your goals while actually saving you money. For a complimentary consultation, send us an email at this address and follow us on these social channels. Thank you for tuning in to the Elevate from Failure podcast. Now here is the rest of this episode.
So I don't really think, like sometimes it's like, I think it is about almost like going with your gut. It's like, oh, that sounds like a fun thing to study. Like I'm gonna go do that. So yeah, that's very much kind of how I got into it. There's no like actually, oh, I was thinking, for 5 years that that's what I want to do.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad that you got into that. So I know you briefly mentioned this, but what actually happens in the brain for somebody with ADHD, whether it's like they are kind of all over the place, whether they're dysregulated or unmedicated or like uncaffeinated. Um, and also what happens in the brain if you can like talk about it for those who are regulated when we're actually kind of, I would say the opposite. I don't know if it's opposite or not, like when we're hyper focusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you would like to kind of talk about it because there's so much info online. But I think to know exactly what's happening chemically would be great.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the thing with neuroscience and any science is that it's constantly evolving, isn't it? So it's like we're constantly figuring out how things work, how they don't work, and a lot with like ADHD has been kind of shown to be kind of to do with like dopamine dysregulation in our brain. But at the same time, there could be like other chemicals in our brain that could be, different than for someone who doesn't have ADHD. But like dopamine is like, things that like we feel reward or like when we're like anticipating a reward, that's when like dopamine goes up. Like often when we like have to put effort into things, like all of these things. And I think like from a kind of from like when we think about ADHD, like often so like there is research that kind of shows that there is a developmental delay of executive functions. I think like about 30%. And executive functions are anything to do with where like the parts of our brain that need to execute things, So plan, organize, make decisions, initiate tasks, like keep things in our heads, so like memory. And it's like children with ADHD like have like developmental delays with those functions, but at the same time there's also been shown that adults just in general have less of executive functions to those who don't have kind of ADHD. Well, they struggle more with them.
Mhm.
So that's why it kind of shows up as like, struggling to plan, struggling to organize, struggling to start things, struggling to finish things, like all of these things. And like that's where like a lot of kind of challenges come from. And it is thought that like a lot of that is to do with like how the chemicals in our brain work.
Yeah.
But ultimately kind of, I think a lot of research is still happening, and I think a lot of ADHD research has been looking at more like the medical model, how ADHD is like a deficit, like, it's a deficit of attention. It's a, like, it's like a bad thing to have. Whereas like now, like when you're looking at it a different way, where you're like, actually, that's just the brain working differently.
Mhm.
And I think there's less research around that, like
Mhm.
rather than looking at it as like, oh, this deficit, and now we need to give these people attention, then it's like I think it's going to be interesting to see like the more research there is that doesn't look at it as a deficit but as like difference, because there is like research now starting to look at like, is it actually like, are people with ADHD an advantage of having like hyper curiosity and things like that. They are very curious people. And another thing, like often people with ADHD have is more like an interest-based nervous system.
Mhm.
So, like as you said, like you actually can do things when you're interested in them, and like you can hyper focus and keep on going.
That's
Like
funny.
so, it's not actually that there's a deficit of attention. It's just like that attention needs to be put in a place where the person is interested in. So
Mhm.
it's quite interesting, and I think it's quite like a complex field as well. Like shifting it away from that medical model of, oh, this is such a bad thing. And of course there are challenges, but it's not like it's not necessarily a deficit of anything. It's just a
Mhm.
difference. So I think I'm quite looking forward to like all the more positive research that kind of might come out of it, that actually shows like the strengths and the positive sides of it. Someone who's like neurodivergent.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll spearhead that.
Yeah, exactly.
One day. Yeah, so yeah, it's funny. Um, Man, it just left. The thought came and
That's
left.
fine.
Okay, well, so even though we have trouble with executive functions and carrying out tasks, things like that, we are very good during a crisis. But is
Mm.
it because of the dopamine? It's like, oh, I can easily solve this because I can come up with three solutions and I'm going to do it because everyone else is freaking out. And also, is it the dopamine of like people are going to think I'm awesome because I'm
Yeah,
solving this
exactly.
crisis?
Exactly. Could be like I don't know if there
Yeah.
is actually research looking at it, but that's definitely like probably like a hypothesis to, if it hasn't been looked at, to look at, like
Yeah.
what is it actually that makes us so good in the crisis, and like having that focus, and I mean of course not everyone with ADHD is good at crisis, but a lot of us
Mhm.
are, and it's
Yeah.
yeah, everyone is different, isn't it? So, but definitely, yeah, like it would be interesting to see what's actually happening, and where that attention and that kind of, and then I think like often it is like we are driven by adrenaline, like because the dopamine does come from that as well, and other chemicals in our brain too. But it is like then the focus is like so good, so it kind of, yeah, you focus in on the problem or
Oh,
crisis.
yeah. It like sort of makes us hyper focus because of the
Exactly,
crisis. Because it's like,
exactly.
what else are we gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. So like often like it is kind of seen like we are kind of driven by like novelty or like adrenaline or
Yeah.
interest. So if there is like a crisis, imagine if it's a crisis that you're actually interested in as well. So it's like all of the benefits of our brain is just put into like into good work.
And I thought of the meme. It wasn't a meme, it's a comedian, and I'll link it in the description. But the comedian basically says, I have a girlfriend who has ADHD, and whenever I need to talk to her about something important, like a friend's birthday or getting something done, I talk to her in clickbait. So it's like, this is the best way to get ready and be on time to leave for the birthday. Like, this is the
That is
quickest way
funny.
to wash dishes or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So I thought that is so true. Like,
Mm,
I'm literally about to like kind of make like a checklist for myself or kind of whatever, and like I'm gonna kind of like use that a little bit and be like, okay, what can I do in 20 minutes and kind of trick myself into
yeah.
actually doing the thing for much longer, which usually happens anyway.
Exactly. Like that is like one way to use like yeah, like use this kind of systems or like these like strategies that actually work for your brain, and like I'm gonna like trick myself doing it, and then it's like, yeah, that works.
Yeah, so when you had long COVID, were you at all because you mentioned that your, we'll call them abilities, were kind of dimmed, like you didn't
Yeah.
just didn't have the energy to kind of be your ADHD self. But was your brain actually like, was your mind actually like relaxed at some point? And on that note, now that you're better, do you have tips on relaxing? Because again, like I mentioned before, even if an ADHDer may be on the couch watching TV, often, like many times, we're not actually chilling. We're like thinking about 20
Yeah.
different things. So,
Yeah, exactly. No, I would say like when I was at my worst, definitely wasn't really relaxing because I think at that moment you have also like the worries about the illness as well. So you have like,
oh, yeah.
100 thoughts all the time, and then you kind of have all the worries as well. So like it's just, and I think because of the POTS, like your heart rate can kind of do its own thing, and that causes extra stress on your body. So then your brain is just like in
Yeah.
circles and but I think, but at the same time, because I was almost forced to like, lie there and do nothing because I didn't have the capacity to listen anything or watch anything or do anything, it kind of almost forced me to learn to just be with myself. And I think that's something we often avoid as well. So it's like, like learning to be with our own thoughts. And even though it's like, thousands of them, it's like being with them. Um, but of course, everyone is so different. So it is very much like finding what relaxes you. And I think a lot of ADHDers do need to kind of tire themselves out physically. So like movement is like shown to, I mean, be really useful for ADHDers. Like, with all these brain chemicals, all of that, like it improves your
Ah.
focus, it improves like all of those things. And it does often kind of make you like you kind of use all of that extra energy that you
Mhm.
have in a physical way. So often like physical kind of movement and things like that can be really supportive, but again it really depends on your energy levels as well. If you're someone with low energy, like it's then you might not be able to go for a run or go for a walk or even for a little stroll. Like then it's like finding maybe some small movements that you can do. Like I actually like when I was at my worst, like because I was working with like a physio and coach who specializes in long COVID and POTS,
Mhm.
and she got me to do like lying down heel slides. So you just like kind of move one leg and then another leg like straight and back. And we started from like 1 minute, I think.
Huh?
So it was very much like starting to like kind of regulate your nervous system, regulate
Oh,
your
that's so
body through
smart.
movement.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you kind of start in a way where your body still feels safe.
Hmm.
Um, and then you like slowly, increase the duration, and then sometimes you like move more upright, all of that. But so there are always ways to like bring in movement, even if you kind of struggle with energy. So I think like movement is a big part for like ADHDers,
Ooh.
and then it's like often doing things that you love. That's what is often relaxing and regulating, because if you're like, I'm gonna now meditate, and then you're not meditating but you are going 100 miles an hour still, then it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's also part of the meditation, but it's like if you're then struggling to sit there and be there and all of that, then it's like you that's not gonna really relax you, is it? So
Yeah.
it's finding these things. And for me, like I think, for example, like yoga nidra is a really supportive practice. It's like a deep relaxation practice. It's nothing to do with actually yoga. It doesn't include any yoga movement. So it's just like often it's just being still, and kind of often like putting something on your eyes. And I usually do it as like a guided practice, and then there's often like kind of focusing on different parts of the body,
Hmm.
which is really good because it makes you having to focus on something,
Hmm.
which I think for our brains is often a good thing, and that is very kind of regulating and can be really kind of relaxing thing. But at the same time, like it doesn't always work. It's you can and I think that's also like learning to recognize like when it's something you need and when it's something your brain is like, nah, that's not the day for today. Like again, if you're there for 10
Yeah.
minutes and you're just tense and thinking like, when does this stop? Then it
Hmm.
doesn't really work. But I think often it's like giving it a go
Hmm.
and then seeing, oh, is it gonna work today or not? At least that's what often works for me as well. And I've had like I have some clients who like ADHDers as well who find like yoga nidra is like one of the most supportive things to kind of help them clear their head and kind of relax
Ah,
them and all of that. So that can be like a useful thing as well.
oh, that's awesome. I'm gonna pause the video for a bit and open the door for the dogs. Two
Yeah,
seconds.
yeah.
Ooh. Okay, yes. All right, so this is serendipitous because Joanna and I are both house and pet sitting. And yeah, so I have kind of two groups of friends. We'll just say two communities here in Scotland. One is the backpacker traveler type, and the other is completely settled in Scotland, like house, whatever. I'm in the middle. So I feel like Joanna and her partner are kind of on the same boat. But the way that I see it is it's a great way to travel. So whether you're in the same country, which is totally valid, you can travel within the same country, or go to different countries with house pet sitting as well. I think that it's super cost effective, obviously. But also, if you're like me, if you're thinking about getting a dog one day and want to know if you can take care of one, this is a great way to do it. So you want
Definitely.
to talk about that, and also if you've kind of dealt with people who are like, why would you do that? Or like, like kind of why, and kind of like questioning it a bit.
Yeah, yeah. Often people question something that's out of the
Yeah,
ordinary,
it's
isn't it?
yeah,
But yeah, I do it like with my partner. We do it full time, so we literally like we don't actually like have our own place. So we go from place to place and house and pet. I mean, usually it's pet sitting. I don't think we've ever done just a house sit. So
that'd be
usually it's
nice.
like cats, yeah, cats and dogs, and we both love like animals. So it's an amazing way to spend time with them. Like sometimes when we have like a small break and we're like in an Airbnb, we're like, oh, that feels a bit odd. Like it's really weird without all these pets. But yeah, we absolutely love it, and I think it's a good way to, I think for like an ADHD brain, like
Yeah,
that novelty, like constantly getting like dopamine and being in a new place and like yeah, being with animals, like that's always so nice and so yeah, it like really works and it can, I mean, of course, it comes with a lot of responsibilities as well. Like it's not just, oh, it's a fun thing to do, but it's a lot of responsibility as well. But like yeah, it's such a fun way of living. But yeah, like often like we haven't really got anything like too negative ever when we mention it to
Mhm.
people. Like it's often more kind of curiosity and I mean most people are like, oh, you must be saving so much for rent, and it's like, yeah, we are of course, but it's like we like collect so much more animal poo, than anyone else probably. So it's comes with its benefits and the challenges as well. So it's so yeah, but I think it is ultimately learning to live a life for yourself and what works for your brain, isn't it? It's otherwise like it's yeah, it gets quite kind of especially when you're neurodivergent, like I think like that authenticity is so important for us, and often we kind of mask and we try not to be ourselves, but it's just exhausting, and that's often what leads to burnout and these kind of chronic illnesses as well. Like I
Yeah.
mean, when I look back at my kind of long COVID and all of that journey, and looking back, like my body was definitely giving me signs,
Mhm.
little whispers of like, slow down, live maybe a little bit differently. So I think, yeah, just like not caring too much what other people what people
I like
have to
that.
say about things like that, isn't it? But yeah, we've never had anything something like too negative. People are more curious, and I think people like haven't heard that as a possibility, so they're like, oh, that sounds really interesting, like how. And then other people are like, of course, like they're like, oh, I would never want to do it, but like I have some friends who are like, what, like I would never want to do anything like that, but they kind of understand like that we enjoy it.
No, I think that is very it's literally it's kind of perfect for an ADHDer because it allows us to have a kind of schedule. Like obviously
Yeah.
for dogs, they need certain things. So I think for me that's helped a lot. And plus, animals can be healing. So a lot of us deal with like, just uh, just kind of struggles with just
Yeah,
constantly masking. So I think that's also great. So we have about four
exactly.
minutes left. Before we get to where people can find you and everything, I do kind of want to stress um, that if you honestly suspect, watchers and listeners, that you have ADHD or long COVID, like if you're extra fatigued, if something doesn't feel right, definitely seek help. If you cannot because of the healthcare system, even though they're trying their best, I think they are. Reach out to somebody, do research, reach out to somebody who may be going through the same thing, or anyone like a counselor or something, because it's very important that you feel like you're not alone and that you feel that you get the support you need, and hopefully you can, even with like NHS or whatever being backed up and whatever. But yeah, so Joanna, thank you for being on the show, and please, and if you can give us kind of a short bio and where people can find you, if they want to contact you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much for having me. It's been such a good to have a chat and then talk about things. It's been so interesting. So I have a website. It's called like Listening Coaching. So I think that's the main place if you are interested in coaching, whether it's kind of if you're neurodivergent and you're struggling with like overwhelm or burnout or any kind of chronic illness, and you want to kind of figure out how to make life work for you, then you can read more there kind of about my coaching and what we do, and you can always reach out to me, and I do have an Instagram, but I'm trying to like not be on social media too much, so like
That's
I
smart.
have it, but it's like I'm there and then I'm not there, but it's the same as kind of listening coaching, and I can we can put it, I'm sure, here as well, so people, it's easier than figuring out how to type everything. But yeah, that's like the main places.
Oh, awesome. We have a couple minutes left. If you want to give a quick tip on someone who is an ADHD, or maybe if they've just kind of got that aha moment of, oh, this is what's been up with me for so long, or that type of thing.
I mean, that's where, like, for example, like ADHD coaching can be so useful because it's like exactly figuring out, like, actually what works for me, what doesn't work for me, all of those things. But of course, like, if that's not kind of affordable, or you don't want to do it, then kind of there's also like free resources, podcast or books or anything like, yeah,
And they're not
exactly.
on my
So like
phone.
listening to those, or reading those, and because I think often it is like, like that kind of, once you become aware of those things, like they become easier, like name it to tame it kind of thing. So like the more you figure
Ah.
out about your brain, the more you realize actually that's normal and other people feel like that as well. And then it's about that kind of self-trust, self-compassion, and then finding strategies and tools that work for you. But at the same time, don't expect it to be like a one-day process. It's not like you read one book and then your life is changed. It is a long process at the same time.
Oh, well, thank you so much for being here. Everyone, Joanna's info will be on the screen or in the description box below. Please like, share, and subscribe and comment. Don't be shy. We're happy. Joanna and I are happy to answer your questions in the comments. Thank you
Yeah.
again, Joanna, and thank you all for watching. And I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you so much.